Hi, my name is Josh Weeks, and this is my presentation of the Museum of North Idaho. This is the organization that I have been doing all my coursework on for the fundraising class and for the nonprofit fundraising class. And this is kind of the overall summary, and that takes a look at the SWOT analysis and the fund audit report, as well as a fundraising event also planned for the Museum of North Idaho, or at least projected to the Museum of North Idaho. At the end of the presentation, it also talks real quickly about my biggest takeaway from the class was and what I thought was the most important. So just a quick organization summary. The Museum of North Idaho has been an active historical society since 1960. They actually started on NIC's campus, and now they are currently located at the edge of Coeur d'Alene Park downtown and on Northwest Boulevard and close to Government Way there in Coeur d'Alene. The MNI, the Museum of North Idaho, operates and maintains the Spirit Lake Historical Society as well, and the Fort Sherman Chapel. So they actually, with their funds and all their budgeting, they're actually maintaining three buildings. And the Museum of North Idaho is open for tours and exhibits. Naturally, as most museums are, acts as a local publisher. They've actually published over 30 books from local authors, and they also sponsor various educational programs throughout North Idaho. On top of that, they do tours of the area, and they're quite active in the community. So there's quite a bit that they do outside of just what many might think a normal museum does. They also publish newsletters. They are there for a database for students to research local history. They work with the library, with other research projects as well. So they're quite involved. They're just a little bit behind the scenes too much, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I wanted to comment on their vision statement. Their current vision statement reads, "The Museum of North Idaho collects, preserves, and interprets the history of the Coeur d'Alene region to foster appreciation of the area's heritage." Perfectly fine vision statement. When we did the fundraising report or the fundraising audit, I proposed a new vision statement that's a little bit more in line with tourism, the downtown association in Coeur d'Alene, and things like that. Not necessarily because they should have to, but that's just, with a tourist society, they kind of want to rebrand and re-image themselves as someone that's going to be there and be a part of downtown and attribute to the success of the town of Coeur d'Alene. Again, not necessarily that they should have to, but for what they want to do for their goals that we'll discuss in a little bit. I proposed a new vision statement that reads, "The Museum of North Idaho strives to retain the history of North Idaho through exciting exhibits, educational tours, and providing culturally enriching events that style the city of Coeur d'Alene as not only a beautiful place to be, but also a culturally important place to be." And I think downtown Coeur d'Alene kind of lacks an image of history. They kind of lack that humanity, that spirit of the humanities, and that spirit of our rich culture, all the way down from our logging history to our Native American ancestors. Really that's only represented through art galleries. And an art gallery's sole purpose is to sell paintings and make money. So it's not there. So the Museum of North Idaho really does have an opportunity to make downtown Coeur d'Alene more culturally significant. The budgeting information that we did in the SWOT analysis assignment and the audit audit report is pretty simple in Museum of North Idaho's case. Right now, they don't do really any fundraising. That's gonna that's gonna change because of some of the goals that they have coming up that we'll speak about in a little bit. But right now, yeah, their budget is very simple and small. Really, half of their budget is divided up into staffing, in which they have three. They have three people. So when you look at that salary, that's actually divided in between three people. There's a lot of volunteers that work through the Museum of North Idaho, and there's a lot of pro bono work going on. So that's really good on them. They have an awesome volunteer base, and that's great. So about half of their budget is 60,000 is for staffing. The other half is for maintenance and supplies, and that's actually a really big category because they do a lot of printing, and like I said earlier, they maintain 3 buildings. The maintenance and supply cost is actually a little bit it's higher than what it normally is. Uh, and that is because they had to do some repairs to the Fort Sherman Chapel this year. And their revenue is, mainly through grants and program services like their tours and mission fees and membership. They have a little bit of investment income and they have some miscellaneous revenue as well. And as you can see, it totals up pretty well. I mean, last year or 2014, in the year that they recorded their last history or their financial history, it's a little bit lower, but it's not anything to be alarmed about because of the extra costs. Those contribution and grants are actually mainly through Kootenai County and the Idaho's Humanity Council. So that's great that they are supportive of the Museum of North Idaho's mission. The Museum of North Idaho has an interesting SWOT analysis, and I think they could actually benefit from taking this kind of analysis to heart. They have numerable strengths. First off, they have a very solid foundation in which to launch a fundraising campaign. They recently, they regularly receive grants that have been used for maintenance and repairs of their facilities, but now that those are completed, they have a little bit of extra, they have some extra money where they can actually launch a fundraising campaign, which will essentially fix their weakness, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So they have that. They benefit from a huge volunteer base, a very giving community, and they also offer tangible services to the community. They do a lot for the city of Coeur d'Alene and North Idaho in general. So their mission and what they do is serviceable, and it's a mission that a lot of people can get behind. As far as weaknesses, the biggest weakness that I see with the Museum of North Idaho is that their building is not attractive. It doesn't really look like a place that you would actually, it doesn't look like a museum. They lack signage that says this is the Museum of North Idaho. It simply says museum on the side. It doesn't say what kind of museum. And it's in an awkward location, even though its visibility is technically great. There's confusion on parking where they're located, and they're kind of right when they come into town. It's not a good place to park and leave your car there, so there's some issues with that. And mainly just their image and their branding. It doesn't look like they've really done much to kind of insert themselves into the community, both in their location, just their signage and their brand. That really is their biggest weakness, where they could do the most good in preparing and fixing that. And the fundraising campaign that we're going to talk about in a little bit here is mainly addressing that weakness. As far as opportunities, their biggest opportunity, I would have to say, is right now they have recently done a casing donor profile, and it turned out to be very lucrative. They found about $5 to $6 million worth of possible of big players and high-end donors that could potentially donate up to $5 to $6 million to their organization. So that's huge for them. But this, of course, that's a $5-6 million donatable income, between these people. That's not necessarily all that would go to the Museum of North Idaho. It's just what, on average, they donate. So they have access to that information, and I think that's going to be their biggest opportunity, is to strike while the iron's hot, as they say, and really get in there and make use of that opportunity. As far as their threats go, they don't really have a lot of competition for what they do. There's not another museum in the area. However, Silverwood is, a much more attractive place where you can go. It's a theme park, and you can learn quite a bit about North Idaho history there. And there's other threats is just that the museum given its, current image and where it's located, is kind of a hassle, and it's not really fun to go there versus virtually any other place downtown. And that's why, we got to work on the weakness of their image and their location and things like that. So that's really their threats, but they don't have any direct competition. They are kind of the only game in town when it comes to the museum, when it comes to the historical societies, and that's a great strength as well. So the proposed fundraising event is kind of just we talked about it a little bit, but they're trying to actually move into the old Anytime Fitness Center on Coeur d'Alene Avenue in downtown Coeur d'Alene, which is a much bigger facility. They would be able to put all of their displays up. They'd be able to hire people. They'd be able to become more of an employer. And they would just be much more approachable. They would get so much more business in this area, and it would be big, and it would really help the image. And it'd be one of those things that they could insert themselves into the community, and they can integrate with the philosophy of the Downtown Association here in Coeur d'Alene. And I think it's just something that would really improve the town financially and culturally. It's kind of a double threat right there, and it would be great. It would be a great move for them. The problem is that's going to cost about $3 million. It's about for the 20-year lease of that building, and for the parking lot that needs to be maintained, and also the big changes that they would, because it is a gym, so they'd have to make some big changes, construction wise after they moved in, and they came up with the number about $2.75 million is how much that would cost. And this is doable. The thing is because of the case donor profile, there's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of corporations in Spokane and in northern Idaho that could make donations as well. And I propose that they have a big, gala really in the Coeur d'Alene Resort. Estimating, these are just estimated prices, but if you kind of wanted to close it off to the public, which you could have a public event, and you could have kind of maybe more of a corporate event as well. Um, you're looking about $30,000. You open up to the public, you're looking at another $10,000. And what this fundraising event would do is, you'd have speakers, of course, talking about the importance of history and just, the whole plan of moving into the center, and just really getting Museum North Idaho's name, getting their face out, getting their brand out a little bit. And I think that's the biggest important thing. So they're getting that benefit, and they also have the ability to raise some serious funds. So that's what I proposed, was an event at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. And it would be about $30,000, which they would have access to because they don't have to do the repairs that they normally do. So the grants that they get from Kootenai County and Idaho Humanities Council, they could use that money to really get them into that new place. So in conclusion, really what I learned, my big takeaway from the Fundraising Principles book and just the class in general, was the benefit and the ideals of branding. I think that's really important. In the text, it says an organization that has a distinct personality will be forging longer lasting and more approachable donor relationships. And through studying the Museum of North Idaho, I really learned that that was their biggest issue. And so I've seen it personally of how important branding and having that personality really is, because we live in such a brand loyal world today. And I think this fundraising class has made some pretty sharp observations of how important an image and brand could be, especially when you're competing with receiving donations. Any company really. This is an idea and a philosophy that extends beyond nonprofit organizations, but is certainly the most beneficial to nonprofit organizations, because you really have to shine and stand out, and you do that by creating an effective brand image. So I would like to thank you all for reading or viewing my presentation, and I really enjoyed the class, and I learned a whole lot, and thank you so much for your time. Everyone have an excellent day.